Hi, welcome to part 2 of the research writing video lecture. In this video, I'll be talking about evaluating your sources. Any resources you find, any sources or articles is really what you're going to be looking for. Articles or books, if you go to the library and get physical books, you're going to need to evaluate them, meaning you need to decide whether or not they are good to use. There are a few things you need to consider when you are evaluating sources. Your main purpose here is you need to evaluate whether or not they are high quality sources for you to be using in an academic research essay. These are the quality of the source, meaning how reliable and credible are those sources? Are they a source that shows a depth of research? Is it an appropriate source to be using in an academic research paper? The other thing is you need to evaluate whether or not it is going to be useful to you, considering your topic and the argument you want to make. Now, as far as quality goes, there are a few kind of general categories you can place most sources in. Very high quality sources tend to be scholarly. Scholarly meaning they are written by scholars. They are written by people in the academic community, written by professors, written by experts in their field. If they are articles in scholarly journals, in academic journals, then they have been approved by experts in the field. So you know that they are trustworthy and they are high quality. Other kinds of sources that might be considered high quality, trade books, some magazines. Magazines must be geared toward an educated general audience, though, so you really need to consider the reputation of the publisher. So, for example, certain publications like Scientific American or The New Yorker, these are they are popular magazines. They're not peer-reviewed academic journals, but they have a reputation that they need to uphold, and they are geared toward, they're meant for an educated audience. Government documents, more often than not, are more reliable. You may have heard people say you can decide whether or not a source online on the internet is reliable based on whether it is a .com or a .org or a .gov. A lot of times, if it's from a .gov, you'll find documents or web pages that are published by government organizations, and those might be considered more reliable than others, although the government does lie sometimes, or mislead or present biased information. But yes, government documents are more reliable than some other documents. But you can't really just judge from whether a website is what the extension on a website is. Yes, .gov may be more reliable, but .org is not necessarily more reliable than .com, and I'm sure you were told that. .org really just means organization, and anyone can call themselves an organization. When I bought a website for my blog, I could decide if I wanted a .com, a .org, or a .net, and I didn't have to prove myself more reliable to get a certain website domain. So that's kind of an old thing of the past. People used to say that was how you can tell whether a source is better. That's not necessarily true. You need to think about, where is this coming from? Who wrote it? What's the organization? Do they have a bias? Are they trustworthy? Do they have a good reputation? Documents posted online by reputable organizations. So again, you need to consider the reputation of the actual organization. If you are writing a paper about gun control, and you are arguing there should be little gun control or no gun control, if you are using documents specifically provided by the NRA, you are using biased documents because you have to consider the reputation. The National Rifle Association is known to be very biased when it comes to that topic, and they're only going to promote or publish material that is against gun control, and they might omit or leave important information out to make their case better because they're a lobbying organization. Now, they may call themselves a non-profit, but they're lobbyists, which means they're kind of in cooperation with gun manufacturers. They donate money to politicians in order to try to get them vote against any gun control legislation. So this is just an example of how you would have to consider the reputation and the purpose and the agenda of organizations in order to decide if a source is high quality. Textbooks, reference books, those can be high quality, but you wouldn't want to use them in an essay. You wouldn't want to quote from a textbook or a reference book like an encyclopedia. This is why I've told you guys before, there are some sources I'm going to go through that are available in the databases that are just general overview websites. They have a lot of useful information, but they're only useful for background reading. It doesn't look like high quality research when you are citing from, say, an encyclopedia article or a general overview. Now, less high quality, you have things like news stories and articles, feature articles in news organizations or news publications. Those can be high quality, but they can also be lower quality. Some news organizations have a bias, and it's clear, and they leave things out. Also, they publish so quickly after certain events that they often will have to retract or take back some errors that they've made. Popular magazine articles, sometimes they can be good, sometimes they can be less than high quality. It really depends on the magazine. Documents published by businesses and nonprofit organizations, again, it depends on the business. If they have a stake in the topic that they're researching and publishing about, it depends on the organization. Now, lower quality, questionable quality, anything that's loosely regulated, any unregulated media content. So you've got internet discussion boards. You should never be quoting from a chat room or like a Reddit comment. Those are all anonymous, and they don't need to worry about their reputations. And people post incorrect or misleading things on the internet all the time. In anyone's blog. Now, I'm not saying all blogs are bad sources. Really, it depends on the person, because anyone can write a blog. Just because it's on the internet doesn't make it high quality. Now, maybe you find a blog that's written by a Nobel Peace Prize winning scientist. If that's the case, then it could be considered a high quality source just based on that writer's reputation. But for every Nobel Prize winning scientist who has a blog, there's some Joe Schmo who's nobody and doesn't know what he's talking about and has a blog. So you can't trust just blogs. Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean that it's a high quality article. Free online encyclopedias, right? Say it with me. Wikipedia. You can't be using Wikipedia as a source. Now, I'm not saying you can't use it for background reading. There are better sources you can use for background reading. Sometimes it's nice to use Wikipedia to understand a source as you are first learning about it. Sometimes it points you to better sources in its bibliography or its sources. That's the same in other reference works that I'll be talking about in another lecture in the databases, higher quality reference sources and databases. But the thing is with Wikipedia, it's anonymously edited and things can be changed, and you can't trust what's written on there. Obviously, radio, talk show hosts, shows, TV news shows, a lot of these will have political biases and aren't necessarily high quality. People's personal websites, it's similar to a blog. Chat rooms, that's similar to discussion boards, right? These are things that we really don't want to see in an academic research essay. So you have to determine the publication's reputability. What's their reputation? The people who published it, what's their reputation? Also, the author's credibility. What's their reputation? What is their training? What education have they had? Sometimes it takes further research to decide whether or not a source is high quality. Investigate the author's background, investigate their education, look for hidden agendas, look for biases. There's something called the CRAP test, and you should write this down. CRAAP, the CRAP test. The CRAP test is usually things that you should look for when evaluating a source. It has to do with the currency. C stands for currency. How current is it? Is it old? Is it out of date? It might not be the best information then. You want to think about Relevance, the R in CRAP is for relevance. How relevant is this source to your topic and your argument that you're making? Is it relevant to the current state of the debate on that topic? Authority, this is where you start to consider their reputation and their background, right? Are they an authority on this topic? Accuracy, is the information in it actually true, right? Accuracy is going to be one of the most important things you look for. And then purpose is where you start to look for agendas and biases. What was the for what reason was this written? Was it specifically to push an agenda or to hide something or to sell something? You know, these are important things. So the CRAP test, remember that, CRAAP. So reliability and credibility are the two main things you're looking at. Can you rely on it? Is it credible? It comes down to whether something is trustworthy. Think about how thoroughly the writer of the source covers your topic. Is it only covering a certain part of it? Is it not really going in depth onto the topic? Think about how carefully the writers research and document their facts. Do you see a lot of source citations? If so, that's usually a good sign. How do editors review the work? How many people had to approve of this before it was published, right? If it's just someone's blog, there's not much going on there to decide whether or not it gets published. What are the biases or the agendas that affect the content? So these are things that you're going to need to think about, and we'll do some practice in class. Have an activity for this. So you also need to think about whether something is peer review. This has to do with how editors review the work. Now, you can pause this and watch a video called Peer Review in 3 Minutes that is linked to this video lecture, and it will explain what a peer-reviewed source is. It's basically a high-quality academic scholarly source. I will explain how to find those in our library's databases. One of your sources needs to be peer-reviewed in this research paper. You find them through our periodical databases. After you have watched the previous video on peer review, you can find another video called From Idea to Library. And it will talk about what these periodical databases are and why colleges spend your money subscribing to them to give you access to these this high quality research and sources. The ones that Merced College has, I will be doing an entire video lecture as a library orientation. So look for that. You will be able to find high-quality academic peer-reviewed sources on EBSCO. This is a general database that has a variety of scholarly journals. They have different databases in EBSCO host. It's Academic Search Premier, Masterfile Premier, things like that. My library orientation will show you how to access sources, search for sources on there, and also how you are going to find specifically peer-reviewed sources. Gale databases, they offer some high-quality sources as well. The one that Merced College has is called Academic OneFile. You will be able to find academic scholarly sources on Academic OneFile as well. They tend to be shorter articles there, but you can still find academic articles there. It has a variety of periodical collections, including scholarly stuff. Now, there's some other databases you're going to see that Merced College has. They might be useful for background reading, but they're not necessarily good to actually cite in your paper. And so I'm telling you now, when you see Facts on File or specifically Issues and Controversies, they publish really great overviews of articles, but you shouldn't be using them. You can use them when you're trying to figure out your topic and figure out what your argument is, but you shouldn't be citing an article from Issues and Controversies, a pros and cons article in your paper. The same with CQ Researcher. They have topic overviews. Those are good for background reading, but not to cite in your paper. So you will lose points and you won't meet the requirements if you're citing articles from Issues and Controversies or CQ Researcher. You can also get Access World News. They have newspaper articles. You can use newspaper articles as your main sources in this upcoming assignment. So keep an eye out for my library orientation. That'll be the next video.